Jose, are you
Can you hear me?
on board? Very good. There we go. Good. I'm going to go ahead and mute and give you 10 minutes on the clock, and you can go ahead and get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate being invited to this event. It's been pretty exciting. My name is Dr. Jose Bolanos. I'm the CEO of Nimbus-T Global Incorporated, a C Corp out of Delaware. We're just a year old. We've been working on this technology for about 5 years. What we're working on is, if you think about what's happening in the world today, everybody's working from home. Everybody's logging in from home. And the concern about the enterprise is significant. The federal government just got hacked again. When you think about telehealth, in February of last year, the FBI had already shut down 2 telehealth fake companies that had billed over $1 billion each. So identity management, logging in, is what we're working on. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. I started at USC, UC Irvine, UC Davis, and finished my my medical training at Stanford as an OBGYN infertility specialist. I was in practice for about 22 years. Then I developed type 2 diabetes and thought I better slow down my 100-hour-a-week dilemma, and essentially sold my practice. And for the last 12 years, I've been helping healthcare startups through investment and advice. About 20 years ago, my interest in identity catapulted when the federal government, essentially everything went digital, right? Everybody was logging in, everybody had a digital account. And I had an office in Los Gatos and an office on the east side of San Jose. We have a big Hispanic population. All of a sudden, we had like 20 Maria Gomez's. And as you know, in the database, an ID is just a number. And in the healthcare industry, 12% of identities are duplicate. It's a really big problem. And you have a different ID at different locations. So identity turned into a real nightmare. So what we did was we created a secondary ID. Your database has an ID number. We created a second ID, which was the first initial last name dash the digits of your birthday. That was a unique ID that helped us dramatically to identify somebody uniquely. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're doing here. Cybersecurity, Nimbus. So the cybersecurity risks right now, I mean, CISA warns enterprises of risk associated with Tor. If you go to nimbus-t.com, we're blogging. We're blogging about different things that are happening. FBI warns of NetWalker ransomware targeting business. Hospitals hit with ransomware attacks as the FBI warns of escalating threat to healthcare. Business service provider conduit hit by ransomware. It's a global risk. Every single company on the planet today with the COVID-19, your employees are logging in and posing a massive risk to the enterprise. If you look at this world's biggest data breaches, Anthem, 80 million, Home Depot, 56 million, JP Morgan, 76 million, and it continues. Vulnerabilities are our keys, essentially username and passwords. There's over 6.5 billion of these already in the dark web, and we shouldn't be using username and passwords anymore. Stolen passwords. Authentication is a critical part of cybersecurity. When you do anything online or log into your computer, enterprise, bank, or healthcare facility, our current state of authentication or unlocking or access to important information resides in static authentication methods such as username, password, security questions, a 4 or 6-digit PIN to your bank card, biometrics, thumbprint, faceprint. These are all significant. All are easily hacked by keystroke loggers, phishing scams, SQL injection, and sniffers. So I'm going to explain a little quick about the concepts of authentication. Authentication has 3 factors. What you have, smart card, security token, or dongle. What you know, username, password, security question, PIN, and who you are, a picture, biometric, and maybe a DNA.
Okay, this is Yuli. Are you showing slides? We can only see one slide.
Oh, you guys, You only see one slide?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, now we can.
Oh man, okay, I apologize. Okay, so what we're at here is, now we're talking about the levels of authentication. There's single-factor authentication, there's two-factor authentication, and then there's multi-factor authentication, which is actually taking a username, password, PIN, and a picture of biometric. And what's really funny, I just got my iPhone 12, and my iPhone 12, I can create an account on Google, named Michael Jordan with the username and password, and it connects it to my facial scan. Apple's facial recognition is not cybersecurity. Nimbus has a higher level. We're beyond multi-factor authentication. We're dynamically encrypted multi-factor authentication. When you look at ways of storing data and things, there's a magstripe ID, which is just text, barcode ID, which encodes text, and normal QR codes, which also encode static text. The Nimbus key is an ID with a variable that changes every time you log in, and then it encrypts it. And the output's about 250 characters, which is way too big for other systems, but not for a QR code. So the Nimbus key ID is not static, but dynamic. It changes every time you open our app. So dynamic QR code and dynamic PIN. So we have a patent on this new system, dynamically encrypted multi-factor authentication. Nimbus key, encrypted ID. The patent was issued in November 2018. We have trademarks on Nimbus T and Nimbus key. Now, again, think about every company on the planet whose employees are now logging in from home. This is a much stronger and easier way of logging in. It's a revolutionary employee login. Protect your enterprise. Our Nimbus Key ID system is patented and provides a new level of security for authentication onto your enterprise. Now, so many employees are working from home, logging in with username and password is a severe risk posed to the enterprise. And our app starts with the Nimbus Key ID here, where you can have one global ID connected to multiple companies, actually, your bank and everything else. And then a directory, messaging, telehealth, and then news. The directory is rather fascinating because before we give you a Nimbus ID, we go through a authentication process that you upload a professional picture for the directory, a selfie, and then a picture of a government ID with an ID on it. Our team then checks those three images, and if they coincide, then we give you a Nimbus ID. So here it is, your dynamic PIN, your Nimbus QR code, and every company gets a brand new login screen through the camera, and an employee basically scans their Nimbus key, punches in the dynamic PIN, and then it connects them to their work. Now, what's really fascinating here is that instead of trying to remember a password or changing it every 30 days, this changes every time you log in. It can't get hacked. The market size, according to Gartner, we're looking at $124 billion a year. Forbes Magic Quadrant, the y-axis is the ability to execute, and the x-axis is completeness of vision. The Nimbus Key ID system is extremely high on the completeness of vision. It is beyond what other people are using or doing. Okta's worth 15 billion, Microsoft trillions. We are in the process of raising capital, seed capital, 3 million. To date, we've been self-funded, and we have a pretty cool team. This is an M&A activity. It's an analysis of companies in the identity space that have been acquired, and it's huge. 57 companies, 53 companies. Everything in red was pretty private. In green, the two biggies were SailPoint. They raised $26 million and sold for $2.28 billion. Threat Matrix, 92 million was raised, and they sold for 817 million. To date, here we are. 2018 is when we got our patent. We got trademark number 1 and 2 in the last 2 years. Our team has completed our app and our back-end complete platform, and we're about to launch within the next 30 days. This platform is the basis of many other things, if you can imagine, because your identity is really critical. You don't want to have like my Mac, and it's got my face recognition. It's easy to log into my E-Trade account. You know, it just logs me in. But guess what? Still using a username and password. And I can create
Jose, that's 10 minutes, so you can wind up your thought, please.
Thank you. So our team, we have I have a president in Saudi Arabia, and the rest of the team here is Silicon Valley, and we have a design team and IT team in multiple parts of South America. And that's,
okay, thanks.
That's it.
Thanks, Jose. Do we have any questions from the judges? This is a little bit out of our bailiwick, but judges, what can we ask to Jose? Anyone, or from the audience?
Yeah, I'm just curious about, like, you would have to be reliant upon channel partners to sort of integrate this into their systems for deployment. So how do you go about doing that, or what have other companies done to do that?
Well, identity management within most enterprises, like the majorities, like Microsoft, right? And you have an ID internally, and log in, you have username and password. The username and password are essentially they're hashed, and then compare them, and then you're in, But the problem is there's somewhere between 6.5 to 9 billion username and passwords have been stolen. So the last connection for us is the ability for us to then take because we've authenticated you on the registration process because of the pictures, right? So you truly have a global ID. When we have a customer, we then create the interchange. John Smith at Google is now John Smith here, and we'll have a public and private key. So we have the public key, and then we exchange that, and then it logs you in. And much easier to actually log in too. You don't have to keep changing usernames and passwords. And the risk, hospitals that have been hacked and the entire enterprise has been encrypted, and then they would charge millions of dollars to get the key to decrypt all of their computers. That's a nightmare. And that's the risk. That's where we're at right now.
Jose, Sam asks, what security framework do you use?
That's all private on our back end. It's all something that nobody else has actually developed.
So you could tell us, though, right? What's it called? Do you have a name? Jose, what's a doctor doing getting involved in a cybersecurity startup? How does that happen?
Like I told you, I've been creating information systems for the last 30 years, and solving other identity issues within information systems. And I love it, and I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, Orange, Gary, I have a question. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
How you doing, Jose? Good to see you.
Hey, how are you, Gary?
Good. So, I'm trying to apply this from I'm putting my VC hat on, especially for someone who invests in healthcare. And what we're doing, our group. So let's say we've got this global network of clinicians, right? And this global network of clinicians has a platform, like our hands-in platform, that is a collaborative communication platform that will go work with everything from individual clinicians into startups and into organizations. And Hands-In itself as an organization then goes and markets it itself as a communication and a collaboration intra-organizational platform. So there's communication happening with the Hands-In platform internally, and then also externally through communities of the network, right?
What's the identity? What's the identity for each individual? There's still username, password?
Well, yes, and there's where I'm going with this, because we're looking at incorporating blockchain kind of technology into it, and then cybersecurity in a way that enhances the security of the collaboration. One is we want to make sure we know who we're collaborating with on the other side of the conversation. And two, as an organization, we want to make sure that that information stays in the organization. So how do we add an additional level of cybersecurity? Is Nimbus that solution?
The critical thing here is that it doesn't matter how thick your firewalls and your the communication networks, the encryption channels and things along those lines. It's the front door. It is the username and password, which is really a significant problem. And like I said, what Apple has done, is I got my face in, my demo says that I'm John Smith, right? So it hits my face and it logs me in as John Smith. That's a problem. So yes, the front door is really critical. Number one, if you give somebody a global ID, you've authenticated them through multiple processes, right? And like I said, we actually do half of what the banking industry does, right? I mean, essentially, we just want to know that you are who you say you are. And if you're going to create an account on something, you should only create an account with your name, not somebody else's. And in that way, we're talking about the amount of fraud in healthcare is so massive that this would actually do a significant thing. It would be a base platform. And again, we actually, with the global ID, within this app, when you open up the Nimbus ID, we'll have icons for the connections that you have. So your Nimbus ID now is connected to Chase Bank, to Stanford Health, so on and so forth.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Uli, we can go ahead and put the poll up. Jose, you have a couple of questions in the chat box, so go ahead and recommend you checking that out. There's our poll. We have 60 seconds on that. And in the meantime, Avikpal, if you could start getting set up to present for CliniOps, that would be terrific. Jose, thank you very much. That was really interesting. I wish I had more thoughts. I don't know a lot about cybersecurity. So I couldn't add anything.
Think about every person on the planet logging into their new job, every doctor logging in, every doctor and patient connecting. It's a really big problem.
It's a big problem. Well, thanks for that, and we really appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.